Hello everyone, welcome to today's live. I'm going to be talking about supplements today and supplementation. I'm not going to be giving any specific protocols because that's what I do one-to-one with patients. Obviously, everyone is individual. And also with supplementation, you have to take on board any medications, and how well the body can process supplements, because some of these supplements can be quite full on, have specific effects in the body. So we have to just take that on board. So if you are on any medication, please speak to myself or any nutritional therapist who will be able to give you an individual protocol. However, I wanted to talk today about generally why supplementation can be helpful. And I wanted to first say that as a nutritionist, nutritional therapist, I'm very much about food first. I think there is unfortunately a bit of an unnatural hierarchy that goes on in the Western world, and that is because we talk about double-blind placebo-controlled trials. And when you talk about these gold standard trials for supplements, there can be this unnatural hierarchy between drugs, then supplements, and then food, because it's so hard to get large double-blind placebo-controlled, that gold standard scientific trials for food, because it's very hard to placebo, for example, eating a cabbage. Although these trials do exist, but they're not as far and wide as the drugs then supplements and then food. So there is this unnatural hierarchy, and I'm very much I'm very passionate about how food can transform our health, and I see it daily in my practice. However, I do think that, in my opinion, supplementation can be very helpful, and the reason why supplements can be very helpful is for a lot of reasons. Our intake of food, we have so much food these days, but we're often starved of nutrition. Most of my clients that come to see me don't have bad diets. They're just not very nutrient dense. And obviously, we can change a lot of that with food. However, in terms of processing, even in terms of intensive farming, unless you're buying everything organic, the minerals, for example, that are in soil just aren't at the density as they were 200 years ago. Remember, 200 years ago, everything was organic. Whereas now, herbicides, pesticides, intensive farming practices means that certain minerals are lacking in a lot of our food or aren't as dense as they used to be. And certainly that is with minerals such as zinc, magnesium, and selenium, for example. So there is this issue. Also, as I say, our diets just aren't as nutrient dense as they used to be. We're not cooking from scratch as much as we used to. Even, any processed food, any pre-prepared food, any chopped vegetables or anything like that, you're losing vital nutrients, especially the more kind of unstable vitamins like vitamin C and B-vits. So there is that. But also it's our lifestyle as well. If you are stressed, you need more nutrients, certainly things like vitamin C, which we lose in the body if we are very stressed, and B vitamins. B vitamins are so important for our nervous system. And again, if we're very stressed, the nervous system is using up a lot of B-vits. And B vitamins are so important for our energy, which is why we suffer so much with fatigue, because of this kind of omnipresent stress that we're dealing with in our lifestyle. Also, adverse lifestyle issues like smoke. If you're smoking, you need more antioxidants in your diet with all those heavy metals. We need to get those out of the bodies. If you're drinking, alcohol depletes the body of zinc, which is, zinc is needed to detoxify alcohol out the body. So if you're drinking a lot, then, your zinc stores will be low. Obviously, the ideal is to work on alcohol intake, but yeah, zinc very much needed there. And actually, if you look at the recent nutrition data study done by Public Health England, it's a rolling study. Our intake of especially minerals is low, and especially for women and girls, iron, for example, is incredibly low, as well as other nutrients. So magnesium is often low. Zinc is often low. Magnesium, if you think about it, the main sources of magnesium in our diet is green leafy vegetables and nuts and seeds. Well, people aren't eating that as much as they used to. And magnesium is so important for sleep. It's so important for smooth muscles. So if you get PMS cramping or night twitches, magnesium is definitely indicated there. But also magnesium is so important for energy production as well. Also, when you look at the government's RDA, the RDAs are so low, and I wonder why that is. I think, when the RDAs were originally done post-war, they were actually done for rationing purposes to help the government make sure that the rationings that they were giving to people were sufficient enough not to cause chronic deficiency diseases like scurvy with vitamin C. The vitamin C is so low. Whereas for nutritional therapists, we're working on optimizing nutrient intake rather than making sure that people have minimum amount of vitamins and minerals in order to stop disease. So it is all about vitality. So supplementation can be very helpful to top us up. Obviously not to be used instead of a health or therapeutic diet. I hate the word balanced diet, but however, they can be very helpful as well if you have digestive underfunction. So things like, stomach acids and digestive enzymes, although please speak to a nutritional therapist first, especially if you have things like reflux and stuff like that. But all of these things help to break catch-22s. They help to support our digestive function so that our body can start digesting the building blocks, if you like, of making our own stomach acid, such as proteins, zinc, for example, as well. So that's also the use. I use them a lot when I work with children in practice. There's a great company, Wild Nutrition. They do some great teenage multis. If your teens are going off certain foods as they'd like to start eating junk food, whatever, then you can use multivits and minerals in order to help support them through this stage. Although I do always say that hopefully, all your kids come back eventually. In my opinion, there's lots of reasons to use them. I have a certain sort of list of supplements I take. I like that sort of. I'm not quite up there with Barbara Cartland. I think she was taking about 60 supplements a day. But they're certainly there as my toolkit, as my sort of toolbox. If I start to get ill, I will start to obviously optimize my vitamin C, my Vit D. Also probiotics, so important for our gut health, and 2/3 of your immune system is in the gut. I posted on my feed actually yesterday about a new bit of research that's come out with on COVID and vitamin D, a nice big study on vitamin D, and how up to 5,000 IU a day is helping post-COVID sufferers. And this is the thing that frustrates me throughout this whole COVID that we've been going on, for the last year or so, is that there hasn't been enough sort of talk about the benefits of antiviral vitamins that have been researched for a long, long time. I mean, there's stacks of research on vitamin C, for example, as an antiviral, and vitamin D. And actually, there's lots of research in the published medical press, not necessarily about COVID, but on respiratory distress and vitamin D. And it frustrates me that not much has been done there in terms of helping people preempt COVID and to help with optimizing their nutrient status, especially as for a lot of us, we haven't been going outside much because of COVID. And certainly if you have darker skin, then please, you can test yourself very easily for vitamin D, get a little finger prick test, or just start taking, I really like BioCare's Nutrisorb vitamin D, D3. Make sure it's emulsified, which means that it's already been slightly fat digested, because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. Actually, vitamin D is almost like a hormone really when it gets through the skin, but taking as a supplement form, very, very helpful. So as I say, I don't work for any of these vitamin companies either. I'm just talking about some that I think are very intelligently formulated. The thing with choosing vitamins and things to look for, vitamins supplements in general, is usually get them from your local health food store. as opposed to, any of these high street branded stores, or, it's usually those independent health food stores. They know their stuff. They're taking on the brands that are, brands that are well absorbed. There's lots of supplement companies out there that give other supplement companies a bad name, and these are usually the ones found advertised on the back of buses, and their potency isn't good, often isn't that great, but also the format often isn't well absorbed. And two examples of this is magnesium. If it's in oxide form, it's less absorbed easily in the body than it is if it's citrate, glyphosate, or sulfate form. Magnesium sulfate is Epsom bath salts, for example, which is absorbed through the skin. Also the same with zinc. You want to be getting your zinc in citrate form. That's the best form, absorbable. Also, folic acid, for example. There's been a lot of discussions about how with folic acid, especially with neural birth defects and taking it at pregnancy, it's actually better to take it in a methylated form. So it's already been put into its active form. And actually in food, and this is why food is so amazing, because you don't need to worry about all of this, it is in the right form. It's in folate form, which is the active form in the body, and the body takes what it needs. Whereas with folic acid, if you don't have a certain, it can actually build up in the body and can cause issues that way. So that's why if you're taking folate, take it in folate form or methylated form. And all the good, intelligently formulated supplement companies do that, such as Wild Nutrition, BioCare, High Nature. They will all do that in the correct form. So folic acid can be an issue there. Also, when you're looking at probiotics, just go for probiotics that are in pill format as opposed to liquids. Any of those Actimel or Yakults. I mean, basically they're tiny little pots full of sugar, and they'll need the sugar to help keep the probiotic bacteria alive, but also they're using probiotics that are not well researched, spurious strains that I've never heard of. You want to be using probiotics that are often stored in the fridge in those independent health food stores. I really like brands such as Renew Life does an amazing Ultimate Bioflora. You're looking at between 20 and 40 billion bacteria. Renew Life is a great brand. Also, Invivo have some very intelligent formulas that are very specific to different parts of the body. There's one for the oral microbiome. There's one for certainly for any sort of women out there that are suffering with their intimate ecology at perimenopause, any pain down there, any recurrent thrush, things like that. They have ones that completely focus on the female ecology microbiome. Also, Biocult do some really nice ones for if you're suffering with cystitis. Their cyan probiotic is nice. So there's lots of really good probiotic companies out there. And again, they're usually the ones that are stored in the fridge. Probiotics I don't take all the time, but I do take the second half of my cycle, or if I'm starting to come down with something or just feel a bit run down, they can really help. Again, 2/3 of your immune system is in the gut. So other things to look for. So what do we do? So with oils, oh my God, there are some really quite, the thing with oil, omega-3 oils, to start with that, is that basically you want to be getting DHA and EPA that is as high as possible. So DHA and EPA are the active forms of omega-3 that actually do something in the body. If you're buying if you're buying some linseed oil, for example, that's has to be broken down in the body to get these active DHA and EPA. And actually, you can now get brilliant vegan DHA and EPA supplements, omega-3 supplements. Cytoplan, for example, does a really nice one. So that's great if you don't want to, but also going for brands that use sustainable fish sources. Wild Nutrition do Bare Biology. I mean, Bare Biology is really clean as well, as is Wild Nutrition. But Bare Biology, for example, has very high dose DHA and EPA. And certainly if you're suffering with any kind of foggy head or dry skin, they really help your skin. You can feel it. I really like things like evening primrose oil. For example, if you suffer with eczema, evening primrose is very, very calming there. So going back to some essentials. So I would say vitamin C, if you're very stressed, you will be losing more vitamin C. If we don't store vitamin C in the body, so you need it every day. And actually, if you were to look back at your food intake, how much of that is going to be vitamin C? Well, probably, some of it will be, but if you're not fresh juice making or smoothie making or eating vegetables for half your plate twice a day, then it's likely to be rather low. On top of the fact that if you're suffering with lots of stress, or if you've recently had COVID, don't forget, stress isn't just about psychological stress or feeling busy. It can be, trauma. It can be physical stress, injury, or post-viral. And as I say, there's so much, vitamin C is such a multitasker. It's involved with 300 plus enzymes in the body. And you will notice it energy-wise. So I really like the BioNutri vitamin C complex, which has some nice plum and pomegranate in there as well for extra antioxidants. And obviously vitamin C for our aging skin, for any women out there that's feeling like their skin could do with a boost. It really helps with collagen synthesis, so very good at perimenopause as well. So then we come on to vitamin, I've covered vitamin D, so magnesium. Lots of great magnesium supplements out there. Magnesium is so brilliant for sleep, so brilliant for energy, so brilliant for anyone with sort of anxiety as well. I really like Epsom bath salts. West Labs do great bath salts. But also magnesium, as I say, we're not eating as much magnesium-rich foods as we should be. There's some BioNutri do a nice magnesium complex, Allergy Research do a nice magnesium citrate, as does BioCare. Food states supplements are quite nice as well. So often the potency on, for example, Wild Nutrition or Higher Nature, they do a lot of food states, isn't as high as some of the other supplements, but because it's food states, it's researched to be much easily absorbed in the body, so it's quite gentle. And certainly if you need added iron and things like that. Iron is a mineral that's, and that's the same with taking any minerals actually. The body with food, and this is the advantage of food over supplements, is that it's all beautifully packed together. So green leafy vegetables, for example, will have vitamin C. They will have iron. They will have magnesium. They'll have calcium. They'll have boron. They'll have actually everything that you need for healthy bones. But with in the body, for example, the body needs calcium to magnesium to be 2:1. That's the ratio that it likes to work at. And that's the problem with taking single supplements. And that's why generally I advise people to take a multi, but a high potency multi, so you're getting everything. Largely because the body is working on, everything is interlinked. And this is the problem when, for example, if you might get prescribed very high dose iron supplements, if you've been diagnosed with anemia, for example, that can actually kick out other minerals in the body. It can compete for binding sites. It's the same with zinc. Zinc and copper, for example, are antagonistic. They will actually compete for binding sites. So suddenly, if you're starting to take loads of zinc supplements, you have to be conscious of, that's why you need a nutritionist, a nutritional therapist to work that through for you, because you don't want to be doing that for a long time anyway, because then that can kick out your copper, and copper is still very important for the body, for our nervous system. They're two kind of partnerships that work quite closely together. The same goes for omega-3 and omega-6 oils. So 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we should have had about 1-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3, whereas now research shows that it's almost 25 omega-6 to omega-3. We're very, and omega-6 is much more sort of pro-inflammatory. It's more meats, dairies, vegetable oils, etc. Processed foods, it's all very omega-6 as opposed to omega-3. So that's why omega-3 supplementation can come into its own. However, the beauty of food is that actually you don't need to necessarily think about that so much. It's just something to be aware of, I suppose. So when we're looking at going back to iron, supplementing with iron, if you do it in a gentle format, so Higher Nature and Wild Nutrition, they do food state iron. Floridix also is a really nice kind of little liquid iron. But it's very naturopathic. It comes with all the cofactors, or all of them do, but it's very gentle on the system, as opposed to suddenly, just because we're deficient with anemia, with iron, it's not necessarily about just shoving loads of, high potency iron in. It all needs to be balanced. And again, that's the beauty of food, is that it is all balanced if you're eating whole food. So you don't necessarily need to sort of think, okay, I need to tweak this and this. Anyway, so what else do I need to say? Yes, so just to be aware of these RDAs, the fact that they are very low. If you're going for B vitamins, I recommend B complexes, because again, they're all interacting with each other. Supplementation can be great, as I say, if you're dealing with illness or lots of stress, which, who isn't stressed these days? There's also some really nice supplements for hay fever, for example. Unbelievable Health, I think, do some great formulations there. As I say, I've mentioned some of the what other supplement countries. So Cytoplan, for example, they do that nice DHA formula. They also do some nice turmeric supplements as well. M Powder is a really great powdered supplement that's focused for menopause, that can be added to smoothies, or just have with some water as a shot. Really nice, because it doesn't have stevia in. This whole thing with stevia, a lot of these sort of powdered supplements have stevia in, which is so sweet, and that's affecting your palate. And that's why I'm all for like probiotics, because you can get sort of liquid probiotics that are very sweet. I would rather my patients take it in capsule form. Also making sure that you're working with good supplements like BioNutri or BioCare or Renew Life, where you need to be making sure that those bacteria actually get to the gut, that aren't broken down by the stomach acid. So yes, these are sort of things that I have in my toolkit. A good multi-nutrient, a good probiotic, if some oils as well. If you're not, ideally we should be having oily fish 2 to 3 times a week, but we don't. So if you're suffering with things like cracked heels, if you don't moisturize, foggy head, bobbles on the backs of the arms, they can all be to do with low oil. But certainly if you have psoriasis or any kind of inflammatory issue like aches and pains, they can be really helpful there. Probiotics, just as a general, if you're feeling run down, to help support that beneficial bacteria in the gut. And if you're suffering with low mood, for example, probiotics really help to support the second brain. Don't forget, your gut has the most amount of nerve endings outside of your central nervous system is in the gut, which is why we get gut feeling. So probiotics can help there. So I hope that is of use. As I say, I am very much about food first, and I can't tell you enough how, for some of my clients, they can't take supplements, for whatever reason, because of lots of medications, or they're very sensitive. And that's what I mean about, going low and slow with some of these supplements, because, they will create an effect in the body. And sometimes, you need a specialist there to help you go through that and to help amend the program. But for lots of my clients, for one reason or other, they can't take supplements. And I cannot tell you how much can be done through food. I'm really quite passionate about that. But I do think that supplementation can help speed up healing. It can certainly be, if you're suffering with COVID, I am really, there's lots of dietary stuff that you can add in, like, finely sliced ginger in hot water, ventilation, but vitamin D, vitamin C, and zinc. And actually, interestingly, zinc, for example, the symptoms of low zinc include loss of taste and smell and loss of appetite. And all of these 3 areas are very zinc dependent. So it doesn't surprise me that these are sort of signs and symptoms of COVID, because your zinc has been needed to make those T helper cells in our in our special forces of our immune system to help fight the virus. So yeah, as antivirals, BioNutri, for example, do a great elderberry complex, which I think is brilliant. And that has the elderberry. So elderberry is something that has been researched against Epstein-Barr virus, which is glandular fever. I always ask my patients, actually, if you've had glandular fever. It can show quite a lot about your zinc status at that time. And also, often we suffer with glandular fever when we're doing our A-levels, when we're very stressed. So helping to support your kids, vitamin C. Try to stay away from anything like a Berocca, which has got aspartame in. And actually, if you like, Tonic Health, for example, it does have stevia in, but the Tonic Health, what they're doing is they're trying to be a sort of a natural Berocca or a natural Lemsip. And I have to say that, if you've got teens, or, if you prefer to have, if you're coughing a lot, and then this can be quite nice and nourishing because you can have it with hot water, and that gives you massive. They've got really high potency elderberry one with vitamin C and D in as well. So it's a shame really that there isn't enough. There's often not enough research on some of these nutrients. However, there is a lot of research on vitamin C and D, and it frustrates me that not much is being done. Anyway, such is the world. But anyway, if you have any questions, please put them on the feed. I'm happy to help. I'm just trying to think if there's any other supplements that I needed to do. But as I say, we often with our sort of times in our life as well, if we're doing lots of intensive training, then you need to help support your adrenal glands. If you're very stressed, you need to support your adrenal glands. So aside from diet, having those extras in really helps. I love my job because it's all about vitality, and also about it's only going to help most of the time. I mean, there are certain contraindications with medications, absolutely, that you need to be aware of. And also, if you're supplementing with certain herbs as well, don't forget herbs can be quite they can be quite full on, like the milk thistles of this world, and even ashwagandha, certainly not to be taken if you're celiac. Even things like Agnus castus, you need to be aware of these things because, they're full on, but they can be hugely helpful, especially if you're suffering with anger, PMS, and sort of ongoing stress. Herbs can be amazing as well. So I hope that was useful. Please post any questions. I'm happy to help. And yeah, thanks for joining.